All right. So we'll start with a little prayer of gratitude and then we'll dive into the session. Thank you to the source of creation for being this live healing webinar. Thank you for being the infinite field of beings, all the multiverse of expressions of being. Particularly for our ancestors, without whose precious contributions to the flow of life on Earth, this moment would not be here for all of us. Thank you to the divine in all of us, for the being in all of us, for blessing today's webinar with the ability to work concisely and powerfully and efficiently to really provide a platform to support everyone's ability to master the energy healing process themselves. You want this for you. I want you to be able to do this and not need anybody. You can just take care of yourself. You can take care of other people too. Thank you always with deepest reverence to the eternal tradition of wisdom. All right. So today we're talking about the energy healing algorithm. And first I'm going to do a little teeny, for the new people, a little teeny what is energy healing in a nutshell. And then we're going to do a little teeny description of what is the algorithm in a nutshell. And then we're going to dive into the algorithm itself, probably with a little teeny recap of yesterday. And then my intention and my desire for all of us is to go through this algorithm probably several times in today's session so that we get a chance to walk through it together. And then if you guys have questions or anything comes up, you can share. And I've got some experiences and, okay. That's just my tech man saying he's not seeing any flashing, so we're good. My husband, he wears many caps. Okay. All right. So the teeny description of what is energy healing. We direct our attention intelligently in order to produce specific effects in the entire range of manifested self. Attention is being. Attention is that spark of divinity within us over which we have intentional control. Because we can put our attention on anything. You can choose what you put your attention on. But when your attention flows through the mind, through the senses, through whatever channels you're focusing it, through the heart, when your attention flows, it is the flow of divine being. It is the flow of divinity. All right. So what it does is it falls upon the subject of the attention, and it enlivens or activates divinity in that. Therefore, when something's hurting, the pain itself is like a signal to the awareness to bring that attention in, because the attention has the qualities of wholeness, completion, resolution, totality, which naturally wash away the imbalance that's in that area. So attention is, we could say, that's the first responder of the healing mechanism in the physiology. So energy healing is about starting there with that first responder. And today we're going to get to the second responder. But the first responder is getting the attention into the problem. And there's one more thing that can be said about that, and that is that it's good to go into the core of the problem, or the seed of the problem. Because when we have a symptom, the symptom's on the surface. And so that's usually not the actual cause. The symptom is the byproduct. So we want to get to the cause of the problem. And that involves a little bit of unpacking. You start with the symptom because the symptom contains a lot of information in it about its own seed, its own foundation. So we'll start with the symptom, and then you use your attention going to the symptom, following then learning how to unpack, which we'll talk a little bit about today, down to the seed of the imbalance. And then from the seed, we apply the algorithm. Okay. So that's the recap of what is energy healing. The algorithm is a set of steps. And the book form of the algorithm is pretty simple. You start with a symptom, you follow it back to its core, then that system, there's like a system, because you've got all the way from the symptom down to its core, is offered into the field of being, is released. The mind, the awareness, releases the experience of it and experiences its own source of creation. And this source of creation takes that symptom and takes the seed of the symptom and reformats the entire situation in order to recreate wholeness, to recreate totality, to complete the completion, to provide the lesson that's being asked for through the experience of discomfort. And that is presented to the conscious mind. It's presented back into the body, back into the conscious mind, back into what we think of as our self. And then the self, this is the next step of the algorithm. So we've got 4 steps so far. We've got feel the symptom, find its seed, offer it to silence, and then from the silence, the answer returns, an answer, the antidote, or sometimes more information about really what's going on with that symptom. Because maybe you unpacked it the best you could, but there was a little more to unpack. So sometimes more answer comes back. Okay, then what is returned from being is offered back into being again. That's another step. So then it's kind of like rinse and repeat, right? You do the thing and then you just keep offering it back again. Well, the next time it offers back to being, either the question is more clear or the symptom and problem has been enhanced by the presence of the antidote, in which case that's offered back to being. And then being returns with a more completed form, and then that's offered back to being, and then being returns that with a more completed form, and that's offered back, and then it's offered back again and again and again. And what happens is each time one receives the enhanced understanding of the nature of the discord with its completion, with its antidote, then and offered it back, every time one goes through that loop, it's like a loop, the neural connections necessary to support making the loop oil up. You get faster. It's like doing anything. If I tap my finger on the table, I get better at it. The more I do it, the better I get. So the idea is that the algorithm is something, first time we do it, it tends to go a little slower, and then the second time a little faster, and then the next time a little faster, like that. And taking it to its completion, what happens is it goes faster and 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 faster until it goes like infinitely fast. And when it goes to infinitely fast, the antidote is flushing through the system. At that point, you are structuring health. You are structuring your perfect condition. There's also a letting go that takes place every time the experience is offered back into silence. And so not only is the antidote structured, when it loops out to infinity, the antidote is structured in a stable way in the physiology, but also the act of surrender is stabilized in the being. And that's really beautiful, because I have a child who doesn't like the word surrender. Too many lifetimes as a warrior, I think. Warriors don't surrender. But but it's not really surrender in those terms. It's not like, war times, right? It's a different kind of process. What it is it's a process of letting go of a sense of separation with infinity and allowing one's nature to unify with the whole creation, with the whole universe. And I know we've talked about this from other angles and other webinars, that basically this little physiology, this little system that we are, is the antenna of the universe. and you really are the whole universe. But the thing is that we don't always experience ourselves that way. We experience ourselves as separate. I'm here and the beach is over there. So that means I'm not the beach because I have furry hair and the beach doesn't. Let's hope it doesn't. Oh, look, it has some furry hair. No, but the thing is that we are the sensitive instruments of the universe, like the eye. The eye can't say, well, I'm not the body. I mean, the eye isn't the whole body, but the eye is definitely part of the body, and it's intimately connected to the body, and the body can't live without it. So, this is the eye. If it follows itself back, it goes, oh, well, I'm actually part of the brain, and I'm actually part of the brain that's connected to the whole rest of the physiology. And actually, from my eye has the ability to play its part in such a way that its home is completely enhanced. So it's not that the eye is separate from the body. The eye owns the body. The body owns the eye. The waves, the ocean owns the waves, and the waves own the ocean. It's all part of the same system. Okay. So that's a recap of the algorithm. I had two things I wanted to offer you. One is that I noticed from last night's webinar, that some people in the group can use some support from their own collective and celestial levels of the physiology to enhance and help the algorithm work more effectively. So I thought we would do that first. So I'm going to speak to you everything that is happening as it's happening, so you can watch me go through the algorithm here. So what I'm doing is, with the intention to support this process for everyone, I offer that intention back to the state of my own silent being. And when I offer back to the state of my own silent being, I find myself in the presence of the celestial and collective levels of self. And we share. It's the same body. My collective body, your collective body, my celestial body, your celestial body, everyone, it shares. And all I'm doing is, in that, my awareness stable in that, I'm just asking that part of the being, how would you like to best support everybody in this session with their own ability to engage the healing algorithm so that for maximum success? And always the answer comes back in the universal language of perception and experience. So I have to decode that for everybody. And what I'm feeling is the most beautiful integration between the celestial and collective levels of the physiology. Now, this ties into a question that one of the ladies on the webinar asked me a couple of days ago in an email, and I didn't get a chance to respond yet, so thank you for your beautiful question. And what she did was she was laying out the Vedic definition of the different levels of self. And I don't have them memorized, please forgive me, and I don't have that window open, so I can't read them off to you, but I will be presenting these more to everybody in the future because it's definitely an area of tremendous interest. And the two deepest levels of the physiology are the two greatest levels of the Vedic physiology. Just throwing that out there. They are both the silent and the dynamic levels of pure being. And we'll go more into that. I'm creating some charts to help with that, but that's for another webinar. And for your email, I'll send you one personally back too. But the two finest levels, collective level of being and celestial level of being. I'm just using those names because I arbitrarily brought those as I was experiencing them, not having been a student of Vedic science to such a degree, so I didn't have the Vedic names. But that's where integration is taking place. And I'm feeling really, really luscious experience of that integration, which seems to be directly affecting the central nervous system. So that's good. We want that central nervous system to feel, it's like an upgrade for the central nervous system. What I'm seeing is there's some very, very, very fine channels of flow of consciousness in the central nervous system. And these look to me to be like microscopically small. They look like they're down at the cellular level, at least, maybe subcellular, some subcellular levels of the central nervous system. And they are just waking up with the most tremendous flush of luscious knowledge, energy, knowingness is flushing through the nervous system at a very fine microscopic level. Absolutely delightful, very integrative. This is the integration of the celestial and collective level of the physiology as it manifests at a physical level of the physiology. And you'll notice, if we do a quick scan of the body, if anybody's sitting with eyes closed and wants to do a quick energy body scan, you'll notice that the central nervous system and this big, deep inner core of the body is the area where consciousness is most concentrated. It's like you could think of it as the seat of God in the body. This awakens the ability, your capabilities, our capabilities, to draw upon knowledge potential that's in the consciousness for use with the algorithm. And the reason is that I noticed that some people, and I really hope some people who were with me last night who aren't with me today get a chance to watch this video, because I think it will be really helpful. That some people have habits, old, like kind of lifetime habits of feeling like kind of small and not necessarily able to do stuff with consciousness, or not necessarily feeling really adept at using their consciousness in specific ways to produce specific effects. And so that is an illusion. That's like an old belief system. And for many people, it goes back many generations. And so, in fact, there are generations of people who couldn't even have that thought because they were so like not connected into what is consciousness. So that goes back many generations. And this brings me to the point about purification, which was the second thing I wanted to talk about before going into the algorithm. And that is that this is a process of purification. And I'm saying it, speaking it to the ancestors as we're going along here, because they're receiving their cycles of purification right now as part of this healing that's taking place. That when this knowingness penetrates the central nervous system, always knowledge has purifying power, right? That's a quote from Maharishi. Knowledge has purifying power. It flushes out ignorance. So the ancestors experiencing the release of the belief that they are small or incapable, or they don't have the resources. Your being, the source of what you are, has infinite resource. You have access to infinite resources. Always you have access to infinite resources. Sometimes it looks like you don't. And that can be used as, let's take our first loop through the algorithm, and we will, as a group, as a collective, and we will address the issue of resources. So the feeling of any area that you feel you don't have enough resources, your bank account, your love life, your energy in the body, the health in the body, any area that feels like not enough resources, not enough, feeling lack. What we're going to do is feel it and what I want you to do is see how you tend to identify. This is how we're going to unpack it. This is a very quick, easy, by the way, shortcut for unpacking something that's concrete but has an abstract seed. And that is, how does it make me feel about myself? This is the shortcut to unpacking. How do I define myself in terms of that thing? I'm poor, or I'm, I'm, I feel vulnerable. How do we define ourselves in terms of this imbalance? That is the seed. That's basically essentially going to be the seed of the feeling of lack that's on the surface. Another shortcut for the unpacking is almost every seed of imbalance can be traced back to a feeling of separation from infinite being. That's why we did that other healing with the celestial and causal levels of the physiology, to integrate so we're not separate from infinite beings. We took that one out. Do you see the logic? We took that one out first. Then we can just work with the denser parts that are easier to see. So we take that lack and we just feel it, and then allow the awareness to settle down into the silent source of self. For those who aren't sure what that is, that lovely floaty space that you feel between waking and sleeping. That right there. And it can take a moment, it could take a minute. Luckily, that lovely floaty space is so luscious. There's that feeling when we're in it, oh, I could just sit here forever. It's so luscious, it's so full. And what infinite being does is it takes that feeling of lack and it completes it. It fills it. It adds the missing part. Thank you. I'm actually seeing an activation at the collective level of the physiology that's supporting that fullness, that experience of fullness or totality, wholeness. So what we have is that feeling of fullness is the antidote. And when we offer that fullness, and when I say offer, what I mean is like not being attached to it at all, but just allowing awareness to release the point of attention, our attention. It says, okay, I'm experiencing this beautiful fullness. Now I'm just going to experience silence. So we feel the fullness, then we feel the silence. And when we do that, what happens is that fullness that we're feeling just before we switch attention into the silence of being, that fullness gets a chance to come with us into the field of being. And what happens is you'll notice that the feeling of fullness, which may have started out as kind of an abstract feeling, comes back thicker. It comes back fuller. It comes back more luscious, more complete. So this is now the antidote to lack coming back in a more enhanced form. So it's like a more powerful medicine, you could say, self-made medicine. So we offer that back into this field of silence. And what happens is within moments, awareness bounces into silence and then it bounces back out into the field of conscious awareness. It comes back with an even richer, even thicker, even more profound and intense value of fullness. So offer it again. So there's no attachment there, right? It's just letting it go. Basically, you're letting it go and experiencing your own essential nature. And it comes back again as fullness again, and we let it go again. And it comes back again as fullness again. And I'm personally starting to experiencing it as it's coming back as waves of bliss. And when my being starts to feel the bliss, the body at a very fine level is deeply grateful for the experience of bliss. We don't always get to feel it, right? So when it comes, it's like, oh, so wonderful, so wonderful. So offering with that, offering gratitude with that feeling of the antidote. And the thing about the gratitude is that it's like an oil. It goes in and it really lubricates up the pathways that the awareness is following in order to create this effect. So that starts to make it move faster. Clearing fear for some people. Some people are like, oh, the roller coaster. Oh's nose. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's bliss. It's bliss. So it's all right to create your own bliss. You can't really make a mistake with energy healing, by the way. Just a note there. Let's just, for those who feel comfortable letting that roll out to infinity, we're going to do that. And then I will talk about why you can't make a mistake. As the experience of the loops of consciousness roll to infinity, what happens is the mother of the creation, the whole multiverse is affected by this medicine that you're making in your physiology that we are collectively making. So this is powerful. There's a lot of people on this healing session, okay? So we're like pushing 100 people here. So this is almost 100. So it's really good. This speaks the language, that rolling, that wave of awareness flowing, flushing, washing through the body as bliss, speaks the language of perception and experience to the mother of creation, to the source of creation, to the source of everything that is. And it fills the creation with bliss. It fills your universe with bliss. It fills the hearts of your ancestors with bliss. It fills the points in the universe where fullness flows, where resource flows with bliss. And it activates them because those points in creation already were sensitive to this particular energy frequency. So they start to activate extra when we roll these waves of fullness, of satisfaction, of completion, of resolution out to their infinite capacity. Then those points in creation which are responsible for the manifestation of wealth, of love, of health, of goodness, they start to wake up and go, oh, wow, I just got a little shot of something there. And the gratitude returns from every corner of creation. And it floods into the physiology. And it's so enriching and it's so beautiful. It's so fulfilling that the only thing we can do is offer it back to the source of creation again. And just say, thank you, Ma, for this beautiful self-communication, for this beautiful opportunity to be in this place of intense flow of goodness, intense flow of fullness. Okay, so that was a full cycle. Oh, that was a nice one. Thank you, everyone. It was really beautiful for me, too. I would like to say, number one, sometimes when we're working on this kind of work, and it's really powerful, what happens is the technology has a little trouble dealing with it. And that's why we lost our sound, by the way. It's one of the reasons. I mean, also, yeah, that was it, basically. So it's not actually a mistake or a surprise or merely a coincidence that the sound went out at a particular point in our algorithm, because the algorithm is powerful. It's really like a validation from the environment, actually, that the denser mechanical pieces of the hardware are like, oh, what are you doing here? So that happens. Just saying. I've got several things I want to cover here, but I would like to start by addressing those individuals that have asked questions. So here's a question. Oh, one of the questions got a little bit cut off. Anyway, it says, at the step where we are asking for seed information, how important is it to cognitively know this in words, especially since it moves faster and faster? Oh, good question. Sometimes I get stuck there, not knowing in words. And then the last part of the question got cut off, but I think it just says many blessings. I think that's what it's saying. I only have the top of the letters. So unpacking the question is very helpful. Good. All right. So do not expect to necessarily experience the seed or the foundation behind the symptom as a concrete sensation or experience that you could necessarily put English words to. You know, God bless the English language and God bless our ability to speak. It's such a tremendous gift, isn't it? And a power. But the universal language of perception and experience isn't in a spoken language. It is in a feeling language. So just as the antidotes come back into the physiology more as feelings, then so the sense of what it is in me that's really behind the symptom also will be experienced as a kind of feeling, as a sensation, as sometimes complex feelings. And on this note, also the part that comes back. Now, I want to be super orderly. I'm going to stay with the seed for a minute, and I would like to talk about purification, and then we will talk about how the antidotes come back, because that also comes back as a feeling. Purification. This is a wave of purification. So what we're doing is we are boldly and courageously facing that aspect of our own nature and our own being, which is giving us trouble. This algorithm offers an effective way of dealing with problems, which has not necessarily been the traditional way of dealing with it. The traditional way has been, one traditional way is, oh, there's a problem. If there's any way I can simply avoid looking at it, that would be great. Alcohol? Anyone? So that's been, I mean, we're talking generations, multiple generations, and we're talking to ancestors here, because we have to shift this over on all levels of the physiology and get some of that stability that came in earlier at a neural level of the physiology down into the subcellular and molecular atomic levels of the physiology. So that means we have to talk to the ancestors, because they're the ones, they stand at the door, they stand at the gate to this molecular atomic level of your reality. Your DNA is their home. Clearing the illusion that we don't have access to that, or that doesn't change, because it does. We know intellectually, of course, that DNA changes. It replicates itself, it repairs itself, it transforms itself. Clearing the illusion at an atomic and molecular level of the physiology in the ancestral archive that it's better for everything to stay the same. No. The nature of creation is that we live in an ever-expanding universe and nothing ever stays the same. So may as well embrace that. So staying the same is not a solution. Staying the same is not a solution. That's the antidote coming back, by the way, folks. The antidote is staying the same. It's not a solution. Now, underneath that, this is me unpacking, underneath that belief that staying the same is a solution is fear. Fear of change, fear of the unknown, fear of not having the resources to meet something that's new. This is where we bring in that integration. This medicine that was created at the beginning of this session is extremely important now It's coming up as an important player in this point of the process. This medicine, this energy frequency of deep, deep integration at the causal and the celestial and collective levels of the physiology gives complete free access to the resources of being. Being, which is the source of creation, is infinitely resourceful. Infinitely resourceful. That belief of I might not have the resources to meet the unknown. You are the unknown. You are the resources which meet you. You are this divine dialogue. Which brings me once again, second time now in the last few minutes, to a really beautiful experience from last night that I wanted to share and also bring up a point. So we're just going to let the ancestors sit with that for a few minutes, let them enjoy that process. As I described, this beautiful woman had an experience during the use of the algorithm that she understood that her pain, that her suffering was actually part of the divine dialogue. This is true. This is true. Divinity is experiencing itself through all of us and through every experience, every human experience, every conceivable human experience is part of the divine dialogue. The discord is revealing the part that needs to be addressed. And she said she realized this. It caused her to not recoil from the discord that she was feeling in her physiology, but to feel brave and bold about addressing it and about using it, harnessing it as leveraging it to open up her own conscious capacity to experience unity with the wholeness of creation to a greater degree. That was the antidote. I'm bringing it up because that's a kind of complicated antidote, right? I mean, for her, the antidote came as a realization, and that can happen. The antidote can come in all sorts of different forms. It can come usually the first time, my experience, and I've been doing this for years, my experience is usually first time around, it's more of a feeling. And then I have the pleasure and joy each time I offer it of unpacking that antidote, unpacking that feeling a little bit more, and it becomes more concrete, it becomes easier to define, and that process is a delight. And each time I unpack it a little bit, each time it becomes more concrete, we could say, or at least understood. Each time it becomes more deeply understood. It is more nourishing to the being. It's more nourishing to the physiology. It becomes more smoother, more oiled up. It starts to flow more easily through the body. It starts to flow to the precise locations in the physiology that require that energy. Okay. So here's another question. Thank you for this question. I'm not so much of a feeler kind of a person, right? He says, I'm not really a feeler. So the way I'm doing it is more shamanic. Oh, cool. Allowing pictures to come up. Beautiful. Like an iceberg or a bowl of cherries or a babbling brook. And then I offer that back to my silence. Am I just making it up? And is there a healing we can do to cause the felt sense to be clearer? So first I want to say, probably other people are experiencing this too, yeah? Probably, I would expect. There are other people having the same experience, especially if there are other people who've done any shamanic work. Yeah, see? 2 more people have just raised their hand. So absolutely. My hat is off to all of you, because what this means is that your Anya chakra is lively, it's well developed. And for those of you who are sun gazing, and some of you might be sun gazers too, that causes this chakra to grow. This chakra tends to communicate through picture images or other kinds of sensory, sometimes clairaudience, sometimes clairvision, sometimes clairvoyance, sometimes clairaudient, and sometimes from more synesthesic levels of self. But absolutely, when those pictures come, that's a form of the antidote. Absolutely. The thing is, it may seem like you mentioned a bowl of cherries, for instance. One may think, well, what does the discomfort that I'm having have to do with a bowl of cherries? Like, okay, I got the bowl of cherries here, but hey, now what? But the thing is, that's why we offer it again, because each time it cycles around, it tends to become more, it tends to improve the definition. It becomes richer. It also becomes more refined, more concise. So it's absolutely beautiful to offer the vision, but it's also useful to ask yourself, how does it make me feel? And what I found with visuals, and also smells, of course, is that they often remind me of something of the past. A lot of times the visuals will come up because a visual will contain really a lot of it. Picture tells 1,000 words, right? So it'll contain really a lot of information. And it's like a code, it's like a puzzle piece that it will, all the information that's encoded in that visual will provide pathways to a deeper unpacking. And for myself, I notice that the visuals will tend to come up when there's something that I need to address from the past. And that's because a lot of the really concrete sensory experiences that come back for me often are related to past experiences. And that can mean that the energy medicine needs to go somewhere more specific. We need to direct it to a specific area of the self. And that can be part of the healing process, is more detailed information about the imbalance. So we may have a symptom, and that symptom in its innocent experience is offered to the source of being. But when the vision comes back, like say the bowl of cherries, for example, is something that was sitting on a table when you were a teenager. And what it makes you say, well, how does it make me feel, or how does it make me define myself? Then we remember, oh yeah, I remember that time I was a teenager and the mint was in bloom and it was creating a minty smell in the house at the same time. And then it's like the sensation, the sensory sensation kind of opens up and you realize, oh, that's the part of me that actually is where the seed is. This thing goes back to when I was a teenager and I was really confused about what was going on. Or maybe I was, I had some inappropriate food I ate, or there's some toxin. There's actually a physical toxin somewhere in the system that needs to be addressed, or something that has its seed back there in that adolescence. So then we add in that element of, oh yeah, me when I was an adolescent gets added into the offering. And that really, really helps the energy medicine, or the healing energy, get into where it needs, very specifically where it needs to go in order to promote maximum healing effect. So we heal ourselves in the present, we heal ourselves in the past, and when we let those loops loop out to infinity, we're really healing the whole universe. It's very powerful. So let's do another loop. On that note, we'll do another loop. I'm going to close a few of these extra windows. So we're back in simple state. Okay. Feel the aspect of the self. This time, I'd like everyone to feel something personal, some particular personal area that they'd like to work on. And closing the eyes can be helpful because it allows awareness to settle down. It's a little easier to find one's essential nature from that state of eyes closed. And we offer that discord or that discomfort back into the field of infinity, back to the essential self. And then innocently accept whatever you experience coming back. If the offering was originally on a more dense level, you may find a feeling is returned. We offer that feeling back into the field of silence, letting go and just gently drifting into the field of silence. And what you'll notice is if the feeling originally returned is a feeling of grief or sadness or loss or some weakness, when it comes back this time, it's more complete, there's more strength in you, there's more of a sense of purpose and self. Now that strength is offered to the field of silence. At this point, the offering starts to have a nourishing effect on the field of infinity. And because it has a nourishing effect on the field of infinity, your finest intelligence, these deep celestial and collective levels of self, deeply desire to go through the loop again. So now you have support from infinite intelligence of your own being to administrate the flow of these loops of consciousness so that they're moving with maximum effectiveness, so that they're supporting the physiology, psychology, the health, life experience in the very, very best way. And as it moves through, I often feel it moving from the upper portion of my physiology down through my body, like a washing or a raining of light of being. And let the light of being just rain through the body. Every time it rains through, we don't hold it, we don't have attachments, we just let it go, just letting it go back to the field of silence. And every time we do, another wave on the ocean comes up, another wave comes from the infinite ocean of consciousness, the infinite ocean of being, washes through the body again. It doesn't have to be well defined. What you'll notice is that it feels good. It feels good. The washing feels good. So let it wash. You may notice that it starts to wash faster and faster. It's cleansing out the imbalance in the physiology. It's completing it. It's not eliminating it. It's elevating it to the status of infinity. Again, I'm seeing more integration in people's nervous systems. I'm seeing many ancestors online, just in deepest gratitude, offering their gratitude, offering their gratitude. I'm seeing these waves as they're rolling through everyone's physiologies, starting to have an effect on the earth energies in your location, in your homes, in the land around your homes, in the rocks, in the soil, in the air. It's cleansing the air, and it's cleansing the soil, it's cleansing the waters. And the earth is receiving benefit from the healing that you're performing, this washing, the rain. The rain is washing through your body, and it's washing Mother Earth at the same time. So beautiful. And the gratitude is returning from every portion of creation. And as the gratitude starts to flush through the system, it has this effect of thrilling the entire field of expression. and it integrates, it lubricates, it connects us to our own infinite being. It causes that, it's a completion of the divine dialogue. This is divinity speaking with itself. Divinity is speaking with itself. The imbalance is a rare and precious opportunity to make offerings back into the field of one's own infinitely silent source of creation. The mother of the universe, God of creation. All right, the divine dialogue. There's thank you, everyone. There's a brief story here that I'd like to share with everyone about this. And this is just looking at it from a slightly different angle. And I know some of you are probably familiar with this story, so I won't dwell upon it for a long time. But those who are new, there's an ancient story that originated as a oral tradition in India, and then eventually was written down in Sanskrit and so forth. And this story, the Mahabharata, there's a point in the Mahabharata where there's a story about the Devas and the Rakshasas. And they're kind of like the positive and negative aspects of the finest level of creation. And they sit on either side of the ocean of consciousness. And their nature is to pull consciousness in their own direction. So the Devas pull the consciousness in the direction of unity and unification, and the Rakshasas pull consciousness in the direction of separation. And so they're sitting on either side, and there are infinite numbers of them. So they go, these infinite sets. And so they're pushing and pulling out to infinity. And what happens is that push and pull out to infinity churns the ocean of consciousness. And the churning of the ocean of consciousness in the story gives rise to the manifestation of immortality. It gives rise to the antidote. Sound familiar? So what we're dealing with is our awareness and our life experience at the dense level of creation, which is highly defined and easy to relate to, but is necessarily, in its very nature, seems to have this quality of separation about it. I'm over here and you guys are over there and everybody's in their different locations. The relative level of creation appears separate. It appears that. And it's an opportunity. It's a rare gift to have that, because what it does is it necessarily wakens up. It wakens up the aspect of self which is responsible for pulling towards unity. And it is that churning of the field of consciousness that is responsible for the evolutionary process and for the acceleration of individual experience, of one's experience, to the highest levels of manifestation, to complete divine union, to complete wholeness. I'm looking at the integration. This again is the divine dialogue. Think of I just pushed that. Hope everyone can still hear. The pull towards separation and the pull towards unity is the divine dialogue. And as long as we're dealing with manifest creation, I can't say that I have a pinky finger unless my pinky finger is this big. So there has to be, in order to embody these physiologies, there has to be some degree of separation, however small, however delicate, however refined, it must be there. Otherwise, we're just the ocean of being, and there's no body, and there's no nothing, and there's no life, and there's no nothing. There's no opportunity for divinity to manifest at this level of density. And that is what we're doing. And this was a point from yesterday, but it was so vital and important. I really wanted to be sure to say it again today. that the fact that we have this experience of the algorithm is essential for the evolution of the whole universe. That the reason human beings exist on Earth, it isn't just like random and haphazard that there's an Earth and that there are humans on Earth. We have a really, 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 really important role that we play here. We are an essential component in the divine dialogue. We are an essential player in the process by which the entire universe, the entire wholeness, the essence of the whole universe, the soul of the universe understands itself through the perspective of each one of us. To choose to be in this webinar and to choose to engage in the healing algorithm means to choose boldly to approach the process of dealing with challenges in a new way. This is a new seed to yield a new crop. That we talked about the old way, which was avoid problems at all costs. And I'm not saying we should go diving into dangerous situations. Safety first, always, always, always. But if you're dealing with anything, and no matter how healthy you are, no matter how happy you are, no matter how full and rich and divine life is, it can always be another notch better, right? One can always see another horizon. So choosing to engage in this way that involves actively participating in the creation process. And that's really what we're doing with this healing algorithm. By the way, the sun is starting to play with us here. That's why the lights are changing. It's going in and out from behind the clouds. The rain is coming. All right. Let me just check if I have any questions here. Does anybody have any? No new questions. Okay. Any, if there are any experiences or questions, oh wait, there was another question that came up from yesterday. So let me add this one in. And this kind of relates to one that this beautiful woman emailed in about 2 or 3 days ago too, which I dealt with briefly toward the end of last night's webinar. And that is, what if you have so many things that are going wrong, like so many things at once? I can easily identify at least a dozen or more things going all at the same time. How do I do the algorithm, and how do I decide like which of these things I should use? Should I just like try to use one of them, or should I try to somehow do all of them? I would like to say that frequently, and this is, if we remember our diagram, I'm not going to screen share today because I'm using a new camera and I don't want to mess with the technology too much for fear of losing you guys, but I'll use my finger diagram instead. So we have this field of manifestation from unmanifest being up through dense manifest being. We have these identified sort of layers in that process. What happens is, if there's an imbalance at a very delicate, subtle layer of self, and that imbalance, the seed, is so deep that it's very abstract and we haven't sort of unpacked it, we haven't gone in and decoded it yet, then what can happen is it wants to decode, right? So what will happen is symptoms will start to bubble up to the surface. And what can happen is, as they move through the delicate levels of consciousness, the less manifest levels of the physiology, they can disperse. And what will happen is we can come out to the surface of creation with multiple symptoms. Very often, the multiple symptoms are the byproduct of a single imbalance that's at a deeper level. In fact, as I mentioned before, the decoding process often will bring us back to separation. Just that sense of not being in union with my own divine being. Thinking of myself in terms of some isolated form which is not divinity. Because I'm speaking and because I love you, I'm telling you my experience as we're going along. Also, there are beings, there are participants in today's webinar who are not in physical bodies. So some questions coming in from them as well. That question has to do with paradoxes and Okay, that question has to do with, oh, this is a very heavy question. Okay, no surprise, thank you. And offering deepest gratitude for the question. It has to do with the fact that sometimes there are loops of consciousness. Remember what I mentioned, when the loop goes out to infinity, I mentioned this in yesterday's session, it will tend to ring. It actually will have a kind of a sound frequency in it. You know, I have to be really careful here because I've got a kind of delicate auditory setup here, but it'll ring out to infinity like that. And if a loop, the question is, what if a loop gets like a little bit of corruption in it? Or what if a loop that was a pure loop, somehow a little inside loop is corrupt? And that is, gosh, that's such a great question. I love that question. Okay, I love you. This is a beautiful question. So here's the deal, that when the loop loops out to infinity, it takes on a fractal form. So it's looping. It's like chains made of loops. So they're loops within loops within loops within loops within loops. And this is also the structure of the Ved for those who are Vedic science people. This is Veda, is loops within loops, mandalas within mandalas within mandalas. And these are the structuring constituents of the relative field of creation. And this is how divinity creates the creation, is through these loops. But a little mini loop can get stuck in a bigger loop that's a little bit corrupt. Simply addressing the question is already giving rise to the antidote. And that's partly because I tend to move quite fast with the algorithm, but I want to unpack it for all of you because it's a big honor to have representatives here from all levels of creation, and everyone's input is important, and it relates, because what we're doing is we're expanding our own definition of self to embrace our subtler nature. So what we find is that we start to experience reality the way one would experience reality as an angel, or as a ascended master, or as a godlike element, the gods, Mother Lakshmi. How would Mother Lakshmi experience it, or whatever? So this is what we get used to. This is moving into the unknown territory, is experiencing expanding definition of self, and therefore expanding definition of what it means to have human experience. And so human experience starts to stretch and expand. It's beautiful. You can do this. It's very sweet, actually. It's not scary. Oh, and that was the point I wanted to make. I'm still getting to that question, but see, I already answered it for them. So I'm going to continue unpacking for you. But this was the point that I wanted to make earlier. Oh, no, I lost it. Okay, it'll come back. Experiencing life at a finer level of creation. These little corrupt loops can be seen. They always have little threads behind them, because for one thing, the wholeness of creation, that was the point that I thought I lost, but I was going to bring back. You cannot make a mistake in energy healing. That was the important point. You cannot make a mistake. You are dealing with yourself. You are dealing with yourself. This isn't unknown territory. This isn't dangerous territory. This is bliss territory. This is your own essential nature. You cannot make a mistake. It's okay. That's important. Okay. If a little loop of corruption, somehow, a little resonation, which is like, you could say, out of tune with the eternal loops of creation, which are rolling through the whole universe and supporting, creating the foundation for the administration of our ginormous, massive multiverse in its perfection. What happens is, in order for the corruption to occur, it has to be inclusive of some element of separation. So the element of separation takes that eternal form, that beautiful, essential, glorious form of the loops of the divine dialogue, and puts it into more of the space-time fields. And so we know that if you've got something if you've got a wholeness that's spinning in itself like that, and we apply gravity, what happens is it starts to go like this. It starts to move through space-time. It moves, it starts to move. And the subtler ones, they start to move like with gravity. And that causes it to look more like a thread than a loop. It's like a thread with a loop inside of it. And it's a moving loop. It's a loop that moves in a linear fashion. So what we do is, if there's a chord, it's like a chord. The chord can be identified. And what I do is I take that chord and I offer that back into the field of my own silence. And from the chord, I can identify back to a particular location in creation. Is it all right if I share what I'm seeing? All right. So this particular chord is moving back to a location that's outside of our solar system. Another question too. Beautiful. So that little corruption is, you could think of it like a kind of a little implant that's gone into the loop of purity of one's essential nature. My modus operandi for implants is the nuclear warhead mantra. It works every time. I offer it. I offer it to divine being, and I offer it to this honorable level of creation, which is also form of creation, which is present in today's webinar. It's such a privilege to have you here, and all the others. These are all forms of our own being. This is a healing for everyone in human bodies. This is a healing for our human bodies. You have to understand this, that there are forms of creation that are not human bodies, but those are forms of creation that we share collectively. And if there's a form of creation that there's an aspect, a manifested aspect of ourself, which is very, very fine, very delicate form of creation, where we don't tend to have our awareness go there. And that's the aspect that appealed to me, that wanted to know the answer to this, and is now receiving the nuclear warhead mantra. And then what happens is, of course, the nuclear warhead mantra is offered back to the self, to the source of creation. And when it comes back refined. It comes back in a way that it's able to interact with that particular imbalance, that particular little seed of corruption, in such a way that it really is highly effective and very nourishing, very uplifting, very fulfilling. It's like it completes the incompletion. That's the idea. We expand that little seed of corruption out to its infinite nature, there where it takes on infinite status. It takes on the status of wholeness of creation. It is small self becomes big self, small ego. And this was an egoic form. Small ego becomes universal ego. I love you. I will keep working with that until it feels totally complete. But I want to be sure to look at this. Another question has come in, and we're getting toward the end of our webinar, so I don't want to miss anybody. So this is from someone in the human body. Thank you. Thank you for being here in your human body. She's been experiencing contraction of energy on the right side of the heart solar plexus chakra for a long time, which gets hot. This experience has been pretty consistent and stronger with meditation for a long time. And there seems to be no story to it. Yesterday after the meditation session, it dropped down to the second chakra, but today it's back to the right side again. Can you explain what this is? Thank you. Thank you for this great question. Really beautiful. And I love how you've brought it back to something that's describable, complete. Okay, I'm looking at it. So what I'm doing here, offering from my individual point of reference, is I see grief. I see that you're experiencing it as grief. And it's the pressure that's the feeling behind it. it feels like grief to me, and it feels like a slow grief. So beautiful, sweet person. So what I'm doing is we're just offering that feeling of grief back to the source of creation. And hey, I'm on the air, just saying. I'm on the air, just throwing that out there. I have a house full of teenagers, just letting you know that. So. There are no coincidences. There are no coincidences in this universe. There is an old ancient memory connected to this. And it has to do with a love that was so profound and so life enriching that the death of one person led to the death of another. So life enriching, so fulfilling that it was like a broken heart. And there's an old memory with this that goes back to a broken heart that was in so much pain that it led to just lying down and dying of grief. That can happen. So there's a relationship that needs to be worked out with this particular experience. It's a very, very beloved, very, very long, old relationship. So what I suggest doing in this case is feel the sensation on the right side of the chest, and then offer that sensation along with the sacred garden of the heart. Your access, you have your key to all relationships is your own capacity to enjoy your ability to love others. When you love them, you get much, right? You get greatest value. So, that deepest love, that deep, abiding, tender, heartfelt love is offered as part of the unpacking into the field of silence. And here it's returned as the clearing of a promise or an agreement. And that here again, separation, because grief is really the experience of separation, is it not? In such a big way. So that separation, that feeling of separation is dissolving. And again, I am seeing it dissolving for also this at the celestial level of the physiology, for those aspects of self which are, thank you, in a finer level of your own being. And the question has come in, nuclear warhead mantra. So allow me to add as a link to the follow-up letter, which everyone will be getting in like the next, by the end of today or the end of tomorrow, sometime everyone this weekend will get the follow-up, and we'll put the link to the nuclear warhead mantra in there. And just a word on how to use that is, it's a rather long, complicated mantra. It's got many syllables. So what I do is I just made a file for it in my awareness. I've got a file labeled nuclear warhead mantra. And whenever a situation comes up that requires to be reduced down to its finest particle, a little bit the way we reduce food to its finest particle till it's consciousness, and then from consciousness we rebuild it as the body, same. That little imbalance, that little corruption that was sitting in the system gets reduced, it gets broken apart down to its finest value, and then it is integrated back to wholeness again. And so there's a file, nuclear warhead mantra file, and when something comes up that requires the use of that, we just simply apply. You just go, okay, where's that file? All right, we'll just apply the file. And that's a feeling that comes up as a kind of a feeling thing of I'm just applying my awareness that my nuclear warhead mantra is a thing and it exists and it can go onto this area that's not feeling so, that needs to be transformed. Good question. I hope that answered everybody's questions well. I hope everybody's feeling satisfied. If not, you are always, always welcome to email me. I love you all dearly. I'm looking forward to sharing more of this information with everyone in the future and hearing from you how this healing algorithm is working. Would like to hear how you're doing with it, and if you have any questions about it, because it's fairly simple. It has, I think, 5 steps altogether, 5 steps. But as you can see, as we go through it, there's spots where there can be, little variances that can come up. In fact, every time you do it might feel a little different. So, I really appreciate the opportunity to share this technology because it's extremely powerful and it will make you independent. It will make you self-sufficient in your own healing process. And there is literally nothing that cannot be addressed through this as far that I found. I haven't found a single thing that cannot be effectively addressed through the use of this algorithm. So may it be a blessing to you and may it serve you and may your life be enriched by it. And as I said, please let me know. Oh, how often a day can we do it? You can do it as much as you want. In fact, I've had times when if I'm doing, if I have like a flu, sometimes I've just gotten myself into a comfy position and done the algorithm for 20 minutes or something till the flu goes away. I find colds go a lot faster. And now if I feel a cold coming in, my astral body is, everyone's astral body is structured so that you're highly sensitive to viruses and bacteria and so forth in the environment. So you pick them up quickly as soon as they're present, and then right away start doing the loops. And within a matter of seconds or minutes, usually a cold can be eliminated from the physiology. And I found sometimes with flus or if something's been in the body, or if I didn't catch it right away or I was too darn busy, then it can take 20 minutes or something. As many times as you like, as much as you like. Remember, every loop of the algorithm thrills the mother of creation. It thrills the whole creation. It is you actively, it's us actively engaging in the divine dialogue. And as you know, engaging in the divine dialogue allows us to redefine ourselves in terms of our own divinity. So it's a huge thing. I love you. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share it. And so share wide and far and wide. I will send links to this webinar. You are always welcome to share the links. I love you. You know that. It's all. Yes. Okay. And the last question is, could I make it into a mini YouTube session? And yes, I was intending to do that actually, to be part of the Energy Work Fundamentals. It's actually the 3rd video in the Energy Work Fundamentals series. I just didn't do it yet. Tomorrow's Father's Day. So we'll see if I get to it. Anyway, I love you all dearly. Thank you. Thank you for being with me today. And I'm really looking forward to continuing our amazing journey of unfoldment as we go on. Thank you. Bye.